In Revenge of the Sith, we saw Mace Windu make his final choice.
We're on our way to make sure the Chancellor returns emergency power back to the Senate.
He won't give up his power. I've just learned a terrible truth. I think Chancellor Palpatine is a Sith Lord.
A Sith Lord?
Yes, the one we've been looking for.
How do you know this?
He knows the ways of the Force. He's been trained to use the dark side.
Are you sure?
Absolutely.
And our worst fears have been realized. We must move quickly if the Jedi Order is to survive.
He confronted Chancellor Palpatine, revealed him as the Sith Lord, and struck him down with his blade at the Chancellor's window. But in that moment, Anakin Skywalker arrived, torn between the Jedi and his secret mentor. His decision sealed everything. He chose Palpatine, betrayed Windu, and fell to the dark side. That moment ended the Jedi. The Republic fell, and the Empire was born. But what if Mace had made a different choice? What if, before storming into Palpatine's office, he stopped, turned, and asked Yoda for counsel? What if the Jedi Grand Master himself stood beside Windu in that fateful duel? In this version of the story, that's exactly what happens. And nothing turns out the same. Let's begin. Coruscant was buzzing with tension. General Grievous was on the run. The Jedi were trying to end a war that had consumed the Republic. And now, there were whispers among the Council that the Chancellor was holding on to his power far longer than the law allowed. In the Jedi Temple, Mace Windu stood before the Council chamber windows, hands behind his back, his jaw clenched. He had just left a private conversation with Anakin Skywalker, who had revealed a chilling truth. Chancellor Palpatine was the Sith Lord they had been searching for all these years. Windu's instinct was to act immediately, to march into Palpatine's office and remove him from power before the Republic fell completely under his control. But something gnawed at him. The Council was weary, divided, and Anakin himself was unstable. If Mace struck too quickly, it could look like the Jedi were seizing power. So, for once, Mace Windu decided to wait. He turned to the one person who might bring clarity, Master Yoda. At this time, Yoda was preparing to leave for Kashyyyk, where the Wookiees had requested aid against the Separatists. The two masters met in Yoda's private chambers. Sunlight streamed across the room, casting long shadows on the walls. "Mace," Yoda said softly, sensing the storm in his old friend. "Troubled you are." Windu's voice was tight. "It's Palpatine. Anakin has confirmed it. He is Sidious." Yoda closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. For years he had felt the dark side clouding everything, but hearing the name, Sidious, brought a weight he could not ignore. "What do you propose?" Yoda asked. "I want to arrest him," Windu replied. "But part of me believes he's too dangerous to be kept alive. If he controls the Senate, the courts, the clones, then even if we prove he's Sith, the galaxy may side with him. He'll twist it into a Jedi coup." The silence stretched between them. Yoda's ears lowered as he considered the risk. "Act alone, you must not," Yoda finally said. "Divide, the Jedi are. Fear, the galaxy feels. If strike too swiftly we do, the Republic believe treason, they will." "So what then?" Windu pressed. "Together, we must stand. A trap Palpatine has woven. Spring it carefully, we should." For the first time in years, Windu softened. Yoda's words reminded him that the Order still had strength if they stood united. So, Mace called an emergency session of the Council. Obi-Wan Kenobi attended via hologram, already deep in his hunt for Grievous. Ki-Adi-Mundi, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, Shakti, and the others appeared around the chamber. Anakin was not present. The Council had agreed to keep him at a distance until they knew more. When Windu announced Palpatine's true identity, the chamber filled with a heavy silence. Shakti shook her head in disbelief. Ki-Adi-Mundi muttered that the Republic could never be allowed to learn the Jedi had tolerated a Sith for so long, but Obi-Wan's voice was steady. If Palpatine is Sidious, then every step of this war was orchestrated by him. Every life lost, every planet scarred, all by his design. We cannot let him continue. The Council debated for hours, but Yoda's guidance anchored them. They agreed this could not be handled by Mace Windu alone. Palpatine had to be confronted, but the full strength of the Jedi Order must stand behind the decision. By nightfall, the Council had laid out a careful strategy. Yoda would remain on Coruscant instead of leaving for Kashyyyk. The Jedi who were already deployed would continue their missions to avoid drawing suspicion. Meanwhile, a strike team would confront Palpatine, but this time it would not just be 4 Jedi Masters. It would be the Grand Master himself, Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, and Plo Koon, recently recalled from the front lines. And there would be one more. Ahsoka Tano, Obi-Wan suggested. At first, the council resisted. Ahsoka had walked away from the Order after her trial, but Obi-Wan reminded them that her independence was exactly why she could be trusted. She had no loyalty to politics, no stake in the Senate. If Palpatine tried to brand this a Jedi coup, having Ahsoka there could prove the Jedi were not motivated by power. Yoda agreed. Clear her mind is. Strong, her bond with Skywalker remains. Needed, her presence will be. A messenger was sent, and by dawn, Ahsoka Tano returned to the Jedi Temple. She was hesitant, wary of the council that had once turned its back on her. But when Yoda explained the truth, that Palpatine was Sidious, the Sith Lord behind everything, Ahsoka felt the fire in her chest return. She nodded. If this is true, then the Republic deserves to know the Jedi stood against him. I'll help. For the first time in months, she walked beside her former masters again, her twin lightsabers at her side. Meanwhile, Anakin Skywalker was spiraling. Palpatine had begun whispering about powers to save Padme from death. He dangled secrets of the dark side like bait. But unlike in the canon timeline, Anakin noticed the change in the Order. They were calmer, less secretive, and when Obi-Wan contacted him, urging him to trust Yoda, Anakin hesitated. Anakin marched into Yoda's chambers, demanding answers. "You kept me from the truth!" Anakin snapped. "You knew about Palpatine and said nothing." Yoda's gaze softened. "No, only now we do. Help us you must. Tempted by him, are you?" Anakin's shoulders tightened. "He promised me, things the Jedi never could." Windu's voice cut in, firm but not condemning. "And that is why we need you here, Anakin. Not as a pawn in Palpatine's game, but as the chosen one. To end the Sith." It was the first time Mace Windu had spoken to Anakin not as a reckless boy, but as an equal. And that recognition mattered. Anakin didn't agree right away, but he didn't storm out either. He stayed. The following day, the strike team gathered. Yoda, Windu, Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, and Ahsoka entered the Chancellor's office, cloaks trailing behind them. Anakin waited outside, torn between his duty and his fear for Padme. Palpatine rose from behind his desk, feigning warmth. "Masters, to what do I owe this unexpected visit?" Mace Windu's hand hovered near his saber. "Chancellor, you are under arrest. The Senate will decide your fate." Palpatine's smile thinned. "I am the Senate." The room froze. The dark side seemed to thicken the air itself. And then, with a hiss, twin crimson blades snapped to life. But this time, Sidious did not face 4 Jedi. He faced Yoda, Windu, 2 of the Council's strongest duelists, and a former Padawan who had nothing left to lose. The duel that followed would shake the foundations of Coruscant. The office erupted into chaos as crimson clashed against blue and green. Sidious moved like a phantom, faster than any being had a right to be. His blades came down in vicious arcs, forcing Kit Fisto and Plo Koon back toward the far wall. But this was not the one-sided massacre of the canon timeline. Yoda leapt high, his emerald blades spinning like a storm, pressing Sidious from above, while Windu anchored the ground below with precise, deadly strikes. Ahsoka darted between them, her twin sabers flashing in quick, agile counters. She wasn't as strong as the Masters, but her speed kept Sidious from focusing his full power on any one opponent. "You think numbers give you strength?" Sidious hissed. "It only makes your weakness clearer." With a flick of his wrist, he hurled Plo Koon across the chamber. The Keldor Master slammed against a pillar but rose again, bloodied yet unbowed. Kit Fisto lunged at the same moment, his blade skimming dangerously close to Sidious's throat before the Sith Lord twisted away. And then the laughter began, cold, mocking laughter that filled the room. Outside, Anakin paced the marble corridor. His mind was in turmoil. He could hear the clash of sabers, feel the ripples of the Force through the walls. Every instinct screamed at him to join the fight. But Palpatine's voice haunted him. "Only I can save her. Only I have the power to stop death." Then another voice echoed, Obi-Wan's, calm and steady, from their talk on the temple balcony only days earlier. "The dark side will promise you power, Anakin, but it will take everything in return. The door slid open just a crack, and Anakin glimpsed the battle within. Yoda leapt over Sidious, Windu pressed forward with relentless precision, and Ahsoka spun through the crossfire, fearless. He froze. If he entered, he would choose. Would he stand with the Jedi, or with the man who promised him the galaxy? Back inside, the fight grew more desperate. Sidious unleashed a torrent of Force lightning that arced across the chamber. Kit Fisto crumpled under the blast, smoke rising from his robes. But Yoda raised his hand, absorbing the storm into his small frame before redirecting it back. The explosion rattled the transparasteel windows, cracking them in spiderweb patterns. Windu took the opening. His blade struck with the precision of Vapad, channeling Sidious's darkness back at him. Sparks flew as their sabers locked. "You are under arrest," Mace snarled, pressing forward. Sidious bared his teeth. "No, you will die!" The clash shook the office. For a moment, Mace seemed to have the upper hand, forcing Sidious to retreat toward his desk. But then Sidious twisted, blasting Windu across the chamber with a surge of raw Force energy. It was Ahsoka who caught him, steadying the Master before he crashed through the shattered window. The door burst open. Anakin charged in at last, his lightsaber blazing. Sidious's eyes widened. "Anakin! At last! You see it, don't you? The Jedi want to destroy me, and you. Join me, and together we will save Padme from her fate." Anakin's heart thundered in his chest. Padme's face filled his mind. But then he looked at Ahsoka, her sabers crossed to protect Windu. He saw Yoda, sweat dripping from his brow but unyielding. And Obi-Wan's voice whispered again, "You are stronger than the dark side." Anakin stepped forward. His saber rose. But it rose against Sidious. "Then you are lost!" the Sith roared, hurling lightning at the young knight. Anakin raised his blade and caught the storm, teeth gritted against the searing energy. His body shook, but he held firm. Now the Jedi pressed as one. Yoda and Mace drove Sidious back step by step. Plo Koon, wounded but defiant, rejoined the fight. Ahsoka circled to the flank, forcing Sidious to divide his attention. Finally, Windu's blade slashed across Sidious's wrist, severing one crimson saber. Yoda's strike followed, cutting the other from his grasp. Sidious staggered, robes scorched, his pale face twisted in fury. He raised his hands for one last surge of lightning. But Anakin and Ahsoka crossed their blades together, catching it midstream. Yoda leapt high, spinning through the lightning, and with a single strike, his green blade pierced the Sith Lord's chest. The laughter died. The storm ended. Darth Sidious, last of the Sith, crumpled to the floor. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Sith were gone. The silence afterward was deafening. The 5 Jedi stood in the wreckage of the Chancellor's office, breathing heavily, the stench of ozone thick in the air. Windu deactivated his saber. His voice was hoarse. "It's over." But Yoda shook his head. "No, now the work begins." Because killing Sidious was not the end. His shadow stretched across every corner of the Republic. The Senate was under his spell. The clones were bound by his command. And no one outside this room knew the truth. That night, the council convened in secret. Holo footage of the duel had been captured by security systems, proof that Palpatine was the Sith Lord. But how to reveal it without throwing the Republic into chaos? Bail Organa and Mon Mothma were brought in quietly. When they saw the evidence, their faces turned pale. "We'll take this to the Senate," Bail vowed. "The people deserve to know." And so, in an emergency session the next day, the holo footage was played before the entire chamber. Gasps rippled through the hall as senators saw their chancellor ignite red sabers and strike down Jedi Masters. The shock was too great to deny. The Senate voted unanimously to remove Palpatine and dissolve his emergency powers. But what of the clones? Palpatine's final failsafe, the inhibitor chips, still lurked in their minds. Here, Anakin remembered Fives. He told the council everything the clone had said about a hidden plot. This time, the Jedi listened. Medical teams across Coruscant began scanning the clones, uncovering the chips. Rex was among the first to undergo the procedure. When the chip was removed, he felt as though a fog had lifted. "Sir," Rex told Anakin, saluting with renewed clarity, "we're with you, always." Across the army, chips were deactivated. Order 66 never came. For Ahsoka, this was vindication. The Jedi, who had once cast her out, now stood with her again. She and Anakin spoke privately after the battle. "You came back," Anakin said quietly. Ahsoka's gaze softened. "The Order isn't perfect, but I couldn't let you face him alone. You're my brother, Anakin. That hasn't changed." For the first time in months, Anakin felt hope. Without Sidious pulling the strings, the Separatist leadership collapsed. Grievous was cornered on Utapau by Obi-Wan, but this time the warlord had no master to guide him. His armies faltered, and he was swiftly destroyed. The Separatist Council was captured alive, exposing the web of manipulation that Sidious had spun. Systems began returning to the Republic. By year's end, the Clone Wars were over. In this new galaxy, the Jedi were not branded traitors. Instead, they were heroes who had uncovered the Sith conspiracy and ended the war. The Order, scarred but intact, began to rebuild not as generals, but as peacekeepers once more. The Senate, guided by leaders like Bail Organa and Padme Amidala, restored democratic power. Emergency decrees were rolled back. The Republic breathed again. And for Anakin Skywalker, the path was different. He had stared into the abyss and chosen the light. He stayed with Padme openly, the Order no longer so rigid in its rules after nearly destroying itself through dogma. Together they raised their children in a galaxy that still had hope. Yoda watched it all with cautious optimism. He told the Council, "Learn from our failure we must. Fear led us here. Trust will lead us forward." Years later, Luke and Leia Skywalker would be raised not as hidden children of a fallen Jedi, but as bright lights in a restored Republic. Anakin would teach them alongside Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and Yoda, ensuring that the mistakes of the past were never repeated. The galaxy would never know Darth Vader. Instead, it would know Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one who finally destroyed the Sith, not by falling, but by standing with his family, his friends, and his Order. What if Mace Windu had consulted Yoda before facing Palpatine? Maybe the Jedi wouldn't rise again with glory or thrones. Maybe the Republic wouldn't heal through grand victories or speeches. Maybe it would heal slowly, through survival, through wisdom, through choices made in the quiet moments, because patience isn't the end. It's the beginning of something harder. And Mace Windu? He wasn't just the Jedi who struck at the Sith. He was the man whose decision reshaped the galaxy, whether it was ready or not. If you enjoyed this alternative timeline, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more Star Wars stories, and may the Force be with you.